Up to the podiums when I call your names. Carl Muhammad, would you please go to one, and Carl Silverman, would you please go to the other? I want to remind you have 3 minutes to address the board. Please go ahead.
Carl Muhammad, I really want to get us focused for this next month that we are getting ready to celebrate the activities that we're going to foster. I really would like for you to take a look at the Miseducation of the Negro. It's by Carter G. Woodson, who gave us the idea of the month to celebrate the idea of doing an introspection of ourselves. But in this illuminating book, he talks about the African Americans that have already been educated and how they were going to be a hindrance to the well-being of those of us in our community, based upon the fact that they have a different way of looking at things than those of us who are suffering inside of our community. So if you take a look at this book and just read the preface and read the introduction, I think you'll get a better idea on how and some of the things that possibly you might be able to do really to move our children forward as we continue to do the things that we do. I did get an opportunity to go to Tallahassee myself, but I went for the teachers that Monday, and I have to always do like Carter G. Woodson say, I have to point out those things that I see. At that meeting, I got an opportunity to hear something about every child except my brother, right? African-American children, and that was kind of disturbing because it brought me back to Palm Beach, still thinking that I have to do more than what evidently we're doing at this present time. And to the superintendent, I know that we kind of lost the task force a little bit. I'm hoping that we would possibly during the month of February, if we could get some attention paid back to this Beyond the Talk, because every word inside of this document is earmarked to assist African-American children truly in their efforts. And I think if we look at what Carter G. was talking about, how we need resources to come from within, from our own community. That was the reason why I asked those of you who are on the board if you knew an African-American that might have had some resources that were interested in the value of education for our children, if we could find some new streams of resources so that we could do some things creatively for ourselves as opposed to being up under the control of the school district itself, because the things that we have to do inside of our community are much more rigorous, much more in-depth, and I know for a fact that it would be much more beneficial for those of you who are responsible for the stewardship of our children's life. And I did have a wonderful time meeting with some of the educators here in Palm Beach County during this Martin Luther King celebration, and I'm very excited about the relationship that we have, and I really want to thank Ms. Marsha Andrews from our community, from the ADOS, the American Descendants of Slaves. We really want to thank you for helping us to try to get some navigation and trying to move this thing forward. Thank you for that, and I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Silverman?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Carl Silverman. I am a bus driver at the Royal Palm compound. I've been there for 5 years. I've addressed the board before. I know Mrs. Andrews, Mrs. Brill, and I actually had a very good one-on-one meeting with Dr. Fenoy very shortly before I became superintendent. I try not to come here unless I really feel that I need to. And I have to say that the shortage of drivers that we're experiencing now, I don't know whether it's uniformly over all the compounds, but it's certainly very bad at the Royal Palm compound, is starting to impact safety and the well-being of the drivers. I'd like to read a very brief board policy 5.186G, which says students shall not be permitted to sit in the aisles of the bus or in the bus stairwell or in any way which shall block aisles or emergency exits. Well, what's happening is, because of the shortage of drivers, there aren't any spare buses, spare drivers to go around when we have an overload situation. Now, our older buses, the largest buses, which they're not buying anymore because I guess they're too expensive, they're designed to fit 84 elementary-aged kids, okay? That's 3 per seat, not 84 high school students. And frankly, some dispatchers and some school personnel are pressuring us to carry those kinds of loads, okay? I haven't been subject to this extent, but there's one driver who said I could use his name tonight, but I'm not going to do it. He routinely has at least 3 and sometimes 4 high school students per seat. Now, in addition to being beyond the reasonable treatment of our kids, it poses safety issues in that, number one, the buses are designed to protect students in the event of a frontal collision, and or in like a hard braking situation, a panic stop. And without that frontal protection, any student not fully behind the seat back in front of them is going to fly forward into the aisle. And in addition, blocked aisles make it difficult for drivers to see what's going on in the back of the bus, like vaping, like lighting a cigarette lighter, as I had an elementary kid do today, but it was fairly innocent, actually. And also for a driver to get down the aisle in case there's a student in distress, okay? Not to mention in the case of an emergency evacuation, okay? So I had 12 students, yesterday I had 12 students substantially blocking the aisle, okay? And I had to drive very, very carefully. I'll just close, if I can just close very quickly, to say that this issue, I'm coming here because this issue, because it involves the schools and the transportation department, is an issue that needs to be addressed from the very top down. Very top down, needs to be done soon. We need to know what's an overloaded bus. It really should be maximum of 2 per seat for high school. Maybe with driver discretion, 3 very thin high schoolers. I hope you will address this soon, maybe meet with some drivers, a cross-section of drivers to discuss this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Daryl Creary and Ludovic Francois, Atlantic High School students. Yes, sir. Which one are you?
I'm Ludovic Francois, sir.
Go ahead.
All right. Good evening, board. My name is Ludovic Francois, and I'm an IB sophomore from Atlantic Community High School in Delray Beach, Florida. Sadly, Daryl is not from America and is not used to these cold temperatures that we're experiencing this week, so he was left bedridden. Today, I am representing our team, focusing on environmental consciousness at the school level. And today we will be talking about the elimination of, well, the prospective elimination of single-use plastics within our cafeteria system. The single-use plastics I will be focusing on today include our plastic silverware and our individually packaged condiments. So our plastic silverware and our individually packaged condiments are made of a plastic known as polyethylene and polyvinyl plastics. What these do is when they're burned, as we do burn our waste in Palm Beach County, they emit, let me just find this real quick. They emit antimony, a toxic metalloid, which can cause respiratory illness and even cancer. To combat this, what I suggest we do is, in lieu of using forks, knives, and spoons made of plastic, we switch to using sporks district-wide, as well as limiting the amount of knives that we purchase, as they are not utilized by most students. And as opposed to using the single packaged condiments, we suggest that it be instated that we use the pump dispensers. The importance of this is, as the 3rd largest county in all of Florida, really, it is our responsibility to teach younger generations the importance of upkeeping our environment and ensuring that they have a safe and clean place to stay in and to be educated in. And I urge you to take these under consideration, and I also urge you to not overlook these seemingly juvenile sentiments in the presence of these seemingly catastrophic and mature ones. Thank you for your time.
Great job. Thank you for weathering the storm, the weather. Yes, sir, Mr. Superintendent.
If you don't mind, I would love for you to actually have a conversation with our chief operating officer, whose team will be responsible for that, just to spark the conversation. Ms. Paul, could you raise your hand so he'll know who you are? All right, thank you.
Nicholas Hazapoglu. Are you here?
Good evening. Thank you for not butchering my last name. Thank you.
The clerk actually put it in phonetical.
Give that woman a raise. Okay. Thank you for letting me speak and hearing me out. So I come as a concerned parent. My daughter, she attends Palm Beach Central High School, and she came home with this book called Little and Lion, which is classified as young adult fiction, in which young adult is the ages of 18 to 35. In my class, in my daughter's class, they are from the ages of 14 to 16. This book has extremely coarse language, and not just once, but in almost every other page. Sexual, explicit scenes down to the facial expressions, where they're touching each other, and with multiple partners, and has complete disrespect for the Christian faith, has complete disrespect for God. As everybody in this room, we all profess one nation under God, and we paid a tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King, who was probably one of the, if not the greatest church leader in our time. Yet we're trampling all over that, all over those moral values that he held so dear, that which is the reason that we love him so much. I feel that there's enough filth outside of the schools, on TV, and other literature, that we need to be taking our children, our students, okay, and invading their culture and lifting them up from that instead of coming down to that level. I addressed the principal. We spoke about it. He understood where I was coming from. I spoke to Cheryl Phillips, who basically told me that I was closed-minded and pretty much, out of date. I was kind of like an old fogey parent, I guess, like that non-cool parent. She heard me speak, and we had this conversation, and her argument was basically that we're trying to create dialogue in real-life situations, for the kids to talk about, and there's enough real-life current events that we could create dialogue with our children, that we don't have to be giving them filth. I mean, it's kind of the equivalent as if I was to take my son, sit him down, put on a pornography film, and teach him about sex that way. We don't do that. We don't do that. The Bible says there's a time and a place for everything under the sun. There's a time to live, there's a time to die, there's a time for war, there's a time for peace. Okay, and there's a certain time and place to teach our children about certain things. English class is not the place for filth. Kids are impressionable. Their minds are like sponges. They absorb this and look at it as an okay. Well, they're giving us to read, so it's okay for me to say the F word all the time. And you know what? My daughter, I'm sure she curses behind my back or whatever. Kids do, but that doesn't. We're supposed to be setting the example for them, not giving them this garbage. And they're not old enough to be reading it anyway. So I just wanted to thank you guys so much for hearing me speak, and I really hope that there's something we could do. I'm going to do everything possible legally in my power to do something about this, because someone has to stand up for the minds of our young children.
Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, would you please review?
They're moving right now.
Okay, so somebody from the superintendent's staff is going to go out and talk to you.
Yeah, someone from the staff will talk to you right now.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
This way?
Thank you.
No, right there. Right,
Oh.
right there.
All right, board members, if you have nothing else, we'll adjourn this meeting so we can start the next special meeting. Do we have a motion by Dr. Robinson, seconded by Ms. Brill? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.